Right. Grand Rising. Grand Rising. Hope everyone's doing well.
Peace, everybody. Grand Rising.
Grand Rising, peace to everyone. Glad everybody caught this cab.
Grand Rising. I am Flying Squirrel. Indigenous Intelligence. Lady LJ Free. Carrie Bay. Golden Moon. Alpha Jones. Indigenous Intelligence. Make sure I capture everybody that's on here. And anybody who's listening and just wants to catch up. So this rising, before we get started, let us know if you can hear us okay. If our audio is coming in good. Make sure we don't have any echoes or everyone can be heard. So, with the ones in the chat, if we're coming through fine, if you can hear myself, no sellout, and Brother Bones. And also, James Flames, aka Doodle Vision, aka Choctaw Jimmy, will be joining us later on. So you'll hear that doorbell letting us know that he's here. So hopefully everyone had a great day yesterday, and hopefully everyone's having a better rising. We officially ended the Revolutionary War portion of the Indian Wars. Thank you everybody for putting the ones in the chat. And we are not finished with the Cherokee Indians though, because now we're going into the Cherokee Wars, which pretty much happened or was happening simultaneously with the Revolutionary War. A lot of these Indian wars were happening simultaneously. It seems like we the ones who do a majority of the fighting. Like it's been proven, not only were we the Indians, we were the cowboys, we were the soldiers, pretty much did everything. Well, so far that's at least what the information is indicating. So now we're going to be covering the Cherokee War, which is between the Cherokee Indians and the now United States, since they won the Revolutionary War and pushed Britain north and west. So before we get started, what's been going on, no sellout? What's been going on, Bones? Been good?
Yep, everything's good. It's been raining, which is also good. And ain't gotta waste no water.
Okay.
How you been? You always asking people how they been. How you been doing?
Been well, man. Just enjoying this information that Bones has presented to us, and the information that Doodle Vision has been sending to us, and just being able to share that with everyone who's starting their nonprofits and getting their businesses off the ground, and just being able to help them help the community. So I'm excited for what we're doing and what we're continuing to do. So thank you for asking.
Of course, no problem. Where Bones at?
You know, he in the background working. He always in the background working.
I don't think he went to sleep last night.
Yeah, I don't think he did either. So I know we got finished with our pre-production meeting. He was still doing some research.
Where am I hearing that feedback from? Where's that from?
You said you're hearing feedback?
Yeah, just an echo.
Alright, let me see if I can make some adjustments. Are you hearing it back? Are you hearing it now?
Yep. Maybe not now. Mic check. Two, two, 1, 2. There you go.
So are you still hearing the feedback?
Yep, it's there.
Okay. Yes, I need
You're in
to.
a cavern. There's a little echo going.
So it's on my end or your end?
I'm hearing the echo. I don't know. I got my headphones plugged in. It was after the hold on, mic check. Now I hear myself.
Yeah, sellout coming in clear. TMA say something.
Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Hold it
Yeah,
down.
you got it.
Are you hearing it? Are you hearing the feedback from me?
Yeah, it was a light echo feedback, like a speaker was too close.
Let me do this too. What about now?
I feel like I'm at the optometrist office. It's the same.
Hold on, let me see what I can do. What about now?
You got it, man.
Perfect.
Okay. Good.
And it's back.
Oh, it just came back.
Early celebration. You dropped the ball before the goal line.
I said started dancing at the 5.
Everything. At least I think I got everything out the way. Let me see.
We'll be right with everyone in a moment. Just fixing some sound issues real quick.
Yeah. Obviously, it's on my end.
It sounds like a playback that's beating through.
You said it sounds like a what?
Like a playback, like it's playing through something and bleeding through your mic. That's how it sounds.
Let me see something right quick.
Breaking news this rising again. Report this flashed up. Be careful when you buying your airline tickets. They have fake websites that look like the original ones that are stealing your identification. Breaking news real quick.
What?
Yep, I guess a lot of people are going to be doing
Yep.
some traveling this summer. So, yeah, that is definitely breaking news. So, watch out.
That's not good.
People be saving up a lot to go traveling anywhere. You dump all that into a fake website. Fine print.
And that's what I was just saying. That's my time. Don't fake websites to steal somebody's ID. Desperate.
All right, who is it now? That's still TMH. Who was doing the quiet storm? I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where the feedback is coming from, but I can't find it. So, hold on.
Y'all still feeding out back?
You clear? Mic check. 2, 2, 1, 2.
still having the same issue now?
Nope.
Crystal clear.
Okay, because I was logged in to the what you call it with my phone. That's what it was. All right. Sorry about that, people. Got it fixed.
TMH, give me a couple minutes.
All right, take your time. Y'all waited on me, so. So, like I was saying, we're going to be starting with the Cherokee Wars. So, we're going to give some more background on the Cherokee. And we've been doing some digging yesterday. And yeah, we're going to need y'all. Y'all going to need y'all hard hats, some pickaxes, some backhoes. Cut your lights
Bring
on to your
every
helmets.
tool you got. Bring every tool. Might even have to throw the kitchen.
He gonna cut himself off before he got finished talking. I don't know if y'all can see on the YouTube the map that is on the it's on the screen. That map is what'd you say, that 1795 map, Bones?
Sink at it. Yeah, the map of 1795.
Yeah, and as y'all can see, that whole map is of Georgia. And what I'll do is I'll put that link in the back in the chat so y'all can actually take a look at that map, and you'll see that was what the map looked like. That was what Georgia looked like in 1790s, and it doesn't sync up with what the history is as far as how things lined up. And you'll see that the Cherokee Indians, and Bones is the one to discover this. Uh, the Cherokee Indians were actually the last line or the first line of resistance to the South. So everything started south coming from them. So let me go ahead and see if I got put in the chat. As we're reading, you'll see why that's important. So they'll sell out whenever you're ready. You can go ahead, bro.
Sorry about that Iron Flying Squirrel. Iron Flying Squirrel said we had him hopping up early Saturday rising trying to catch the show. Just to realize it was
You muted yourself, Bones. I don't think they heard the last part of what you said.
Bounce
Saturday.
keep pulling that copper Indio.
I was telling IMU, I'm not, I don't see, I am Flying Squirrel. I was like, my bad. But I was reading in the chat where he was like, he got up Saturday rising looking for the show just to realize about 8:30 that it was Saturday.
Mm.
No, he said some other choice words, but I'm not going to
And he muted himself again before he finished.
repeat them on air.
We're starting to channel each other.
No, that's that.
So the link I put in the chat is for the map that y'all see on the screen. I just want y'all to pay attention to that map and look at it as we're talking about what's going on in the Cherokee Nation. So you'll start to see, and this map comes from the National Archives. Isn't that right, Bones?
Yep, the Library of Congress.
Library of Congress. So this is their map. This is the map that somebody made up.
Yeah, I put like 20 more out of it. In between, we could say the night and the rising.
So no sellout whenever you ready, boss. be ready. Let me go ahead and put the link in the chat. We'll be starting with 17th century. Sorry.
Mic check. Mic check.
Yep, you got you loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. Let's see here. All right. We're on history, 17th century. All right. English contact. All right. In 1657, there was a disturbance in Virginia colony as the Recahirikans or Rickahawkins, maybe, as well as the Siouan and Manahoic and Nahisan broke through the frontier and settled near the falls of the James, near present-day Richmond, Virginia, RVA. The following year, a combined force of English and Pamunkey drove the newcomers away. The identity of the Recahirikans, or the Rickahawkins, has been much debated. Historians noted the name closely resembled that recorded for the Erie Cronon or Iriel Honan, commonly known as the Erie tribe, another Iroquoian-speaking people based near the Great Lakes. This Iroquoian people had been driven away from the southern shore of Lake Erie in 1654 by the powerful Iroquois Five Nations, who were seeking more hunting grounds. The anthropologist Martin Smith theorized some remnants of the tribe migrated to Virginia after the wars. 1986, 131 to 32, that might be a reference. Later becoming known as the Westo to English in the Carolina colony. A few historians suggest this tribe was Cherokee. Virginian traders developed a small-scale trading system with the Cherokee in the Piedmont before the end of the 17th century. The earliest recorded Virginia trader to live among the Cherokee was Cornelius Daughtry, or Doherty, in 1690. Doherty. The Cherokee were among the Native American peoples who sold the traders Indian slaves for use as laborers in Virginia and further north. They took them as captives in raids and enemy tribes.
Okay, so hold on.
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead with your question.
No, I just that last line. Well, what was you gonna say? Yeah.
Slaves.
Yeah, because you're gonna say the Cherokee were among the Native American peoples who sold the traders Indian slaves in the same sentence for use as laborers in Virginia and further north.
So the question is, they sold the traders Indian slaves, so they were selling the traders their own people. L.J. Free says northern shore of Lake Erie equals northern Ohio, right?
But it's kind of funny that every time you read these people's stories, they tell you they were selling Indians into slavery, forcing Indians into slavery. And it's kind of funny, in modern times, they try to turn it and make it an African or African American.
Which one is it? African American, or is it melanated Indian?
I mean, nothing that we read except for, the African American.
Breaking up a little bit. I'll send out you. Breaking up. It's just interesting how they're trying to make these tribes, the tribe that started everything, Cherokee, because they just appear. They seem to appear
Jumped up
Was that Bones?
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they just popped up on the map out of nowhere.
Because it talks about the monkey drove the newcomers away. And then you have the, what I'm going to call them, the Rhetoricans. Has been much debated. Historians know that the name closely resembles the recorded Erie-Chinon, or the Erie-Honan, commonly known as the Erie tribe, another Iroquois-speaking people based near the Great Lakes. And that's what Free was talking about. It said the Iroquois people have been driven away from the southern shore of Lake Erie in 1654 by the powerful Iroquois. So is this where they're trying to insinuate that the Cherokee separated from the Five Nations?
Yeah, because I know in Cherokee's history, they are part of the Iroquois family. That during the split, this set happened to head down north when the others stayed. I mean, head south and the others stayed.
Okay. It says they later became known. Hold on. It says the anthropologist Martin Smith theorized. The word here to pay attention to is he theorized, meaning he didn't know, speculated. Some remnants of the tribe migrated to Virginia after the wars, later becoming known as the Westo to English in the Carolina colony. Few historians suggest that tribe was Cherokee. So who are the Westo? We need to figure this out.
I was wondering, yeah. I was wondering who that was. You want to side link
Yeah, we'll put the link in the
and
chat.
come back to it? Okay. Or we're going to go over it now?
We might as well go over it now while we're here, because you know me, I'll
Facts.
forget. I just put that link in the chat to the Westo.
Already, I'm found.
So I'll go ahead and read this since I'm the one that's detouring you. It reads, the Westo were a Native American tribe encountered in the southeastern U.S. by Europeans in the 17th century. They probably spoke an Iroquois language. They said probably, meaning they didn't know. The Spanish called these people Chichimeco, not to be confused with Chichimeca in Mexico. And Virginia colonists may have called the same people Rican. Their first appearance in historical record is as a powerful tribe in the colonial Virginia who had migrated from the mountains into the region around present-day Richmond. Their population provided a force between 700 and 900 warriors. Early academic analysis of the origin of the Westo posited that the so-called Rican Ricohacan of Virginia were perhaps Cherokee or Oo-watie, and that the Westo were a band of Oo-watie. And anthropologist was the first to suggest that the Westo were a group of Erie who had lived south of the Lake Erie until forced to migrate. So some people are speculating they're Cherokee or Oo-watie. And it says the Oo-watie people, spelled E-U-C-H-E-E and U-C-H-E-E, are people in a Native American tribe who historically lived in eastern Tennessee River Valley and Tennessee in the 16th century. The Oo-watie built monumental earthworks in the late 17th century. They moved south to Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. So, and it also goes into the history of it. This is interesting. Put your hats on. I already know that Bones has already seen this. So when it talks a little bit about the history, it says that Virginia established a trading relationship with the West of exchanging firearms for Indian slaves. Go with that again. When the Westo migrated to Savannah River, they quickly became known for their military power and their slave raids on other tribes. Before their destruction, the Westo wreaked havoc on the Spanish missionary province of Guel and Mocama. On July 20th, 1661, a Westo war party canoed down the Altahama River and destroyed the Spanish mission of Santo Domingo de Tallahassee near present-day Darien, Georgia, Florida. Governor Alessandro Alonso de Arangues y Cortez sent troops to what is now St. Simons, Georgia, to guard against further raids. The Westo had ties with Virginia. Hold on. The Westo had ties with Virginia did not mean they would be friendly toward the South Carolinians. In 1673, the Westo attacked coastal Indians such as the Cusabo, as well as the Carolina colony. The colony depended on the Esau Catawba tribes for defense until December 7, 1674, when some Westo visited Dr. Henry Woodward and made peace. The peace became an alliance after the Westo escorted Woodward to their towns on the Savannah River, giving them many presents and encouraging friendship. Okay. Will, we've actually put the chat the, the the links to the chats of everything that we're reading, so you should be able to see them. If not, I'll repost them. So hopefully that helps. So what we're seeing is that the Westo were started to make attacks down in South Carolina, and in 1673, the colonies were dependent on the Esau, the Catawba, for defense. So that means the Esau and the Catawba had relationships with these colonies in the 1600s. So that means they came. So that means the Catawba came across the Westo or the Oo-watie or the Cherokee. Interesting to say the very least. I'm gonna read a little bit more, and then we're gonna go back to the history of the Cherokee. From 1675 to 1680, trade between the Westo and South Carolina thrived. The Westo provided Carolina with slaves captured with various Native American groups, including the Spanish allied tribes in Guale and Bocama. These were the settled Indians, supposedly under the protection of Carolina. The Westo likely captured slaves from the Cherokee, Chickasaw, and various smaller tribes who were later aligned as the Creek Confederacy. So we know that the Westo are not the Cherokee, unless they broke away from the Cherokees, because here they say that the Westo were capturing slaves from the Cherokee and Chickasaw, meaning they were capturing Indians and put them in slavery and selling them to the colonists. Grand Rising Pamela Hill. Hope everything is well. Pamela Hall, sorry. It says, since the Westo were traditionally enemies with nearly every other tribe in the region, their alliance with Carolina effectively blocked the colony from establishing any other tribal relationships. A group of Shawnee Indians migrated to the Savannah River region and met with the Westo while Henry Howard was among them. These Shawnee became known as the Savannah Indians. Woodward apparently witnessed the first meeting of the Shawnee and the Westo. Using sign language, the Shawnee, Savannah, warned the Westo of an impending attack from the tribes. They earned goodwill of the Westo and began to prepare for the attack. Grand Rising Macadon 1.
On the nugget. Peace.
So wait a minute.
They telling you the Westo went extinct, so they say.
How you be fierce and all of a sudden go extinct when you're being given weapons for selling other Indians into slavery to the colonies? Grand Rising Trab.
I'm starting to look at when they say a tribe went extinct. In these cases, it's meaning they became American.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to look at it. Because it said that. Let me put this link back in the chat so people can follow.
Yeah, that's that wordplay too, saying somebody went extinct. That means you don't exist no more. They talking about paper though.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't exist. They didn't exist anymore as Indians. But as we've been reading, a lot of these tribes became U.S. citizens.
Either by choice or by force.
Yeah, either by choice or by force.
Facts. That's crazy.
Grand Rising Pantera O'Connor.
You got to remember, where did the U.S. military come from? How did these foreigners come here so quickly and get a military? Well, it's kind of easy when you got a bunch of Indians running around already.
Oh, they can fight.
Pantera, I don't know if they enslaved the Wale, aka the Gullo. We have to do some more research on that. I put the link in the chat, so if you can when you have time, you can do the research on it and let us know. Um, yeah, we didn't already look. We read one paragraph from the Cherokee history, and it's already sent us on
This little detour.
a nice little detour dealing with the Westo, who they say were the Cherokee, but that couldn't have been the case if, according to this, between 1675 and 1680, the Westo were in the Carolinas taking Indians from the Cherokee and the Chickasaw, and also the Creek Confederacy, and selling them into slavery. So I don't know. I'm interested to find out what type of relationship the Esau, the Catawba, had with these colonists in South Carolina, because as you know, there is a nationally recognized Catawba Saponi Nation in South Carolina. It says that in the 1600s that the Catawba were protecting these colonies from the Westo. So, Great Ace
Quick
Doodle
question.
Vision.
It was this again 16 what?
1673 was when they would be friendly towards South Carolina. Okay, it says when the Westo started having confrontations with the South Carolina, it was in 1673. Well, what you got? And the
No,
Catawba
I
was
just be
helping the
paying
tribes
attention.
until 1674. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I be paying attention to the dates that these people were supposed to be in particular states, but sometimes you'll realize the state didn't even exist on the date that they giving you.
Yeah, that's the reason why we put the link to the Georgia map in the chat.
You gotta get the timeline right, Bones.
Sometimes the timeline doesn't match the actual maps.
Timeline don't match the truth.
So somebody not telling the truth. Doodle Vision, James Flame, Grand Rising. As soon as you are able, please come on in.
Peace, peace, sir.
So then it goes on to read that between it says that since the Westo were traditionally enemies with nearly every other tribe. So here's something to think about. If you are enemy with every other tribe, that means you are basically what they would call a renegade tribe. It says their alliance with Carolina effectively blocked.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Was South Carolina named South Carolina before settlers got there or after?
It was after. So this would still be North Carolina.
They didn't get to South Carolina till 1670. We got a problem here.
Well, it says between 1675 and 1680. Now the question is when did South Carolina become South Carolina?
That's what I'm saying.
Let's see.
Because if the British colonists didn't get there to 1670,
Oh, let me go on mute since my typing is loud.
I ain't even say nothing.
yeah, because the first permanent British settlement was 1670.
So I'm looking at it now. I'll put this in a link about the Carolinas. Put it in the chat.
And that's why I make sure I be paying attention to them dates. I'm like, hold on, how y'all call us on a state that's not even a state yet?
What was that? You said that 1790. Did you post that 17? Oh, the 1795 maps up there already. But yeah.
Grand Rising Atua Matua. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. If not, please phonetically correct me because I do not want to be mispronouncing anybody's name. Grand Rising. So according to Wikipedia, the Carolinas. Let's see. Trying to history. Talks about politics.
You ain't finna tell me there was no 1500s in South and North Carolina was sitting there under them names.
So what I'm looking at is the Carolinas. They give you the most popular states and things of that nature. Talks about the history.
Look like somebody hiding something again.
Colonized this province of North Carolina in 1663. Let me do South Carolina because this is not helping.
I said, sorry for the detour. Just something just stuck out. That was very odd.
It says before statehood, the province of South Carolina, it was admitted to the Union May 23rd, 1788. That's when it was admitted to the Union. So it was a state before it was admitted to the Union. So let me see if I can find out where. Okay, so it says I'll put this in the chat as well. Again, this is according to Wikipedia on South Carolina. You can actually go on the actual site for South Carolina, and it'll tell you.
1776, South Carolina became a state. We got a problem.
Yeah, it was South Carolina became the 8th state to ratify the United States Constitution. Actually, on May 23rd, 1788, depending on what source you're looking at. So basically, we're talking in the mid 1700s, basically after 1760. So yeah, there is a problem. So,
It was like they claiming states and stuff before they even formed.
right, but they're doing that, but they're doing it because they're trying to. I'm gonna use air quotes. They're trying to give you context, but for purity's sake, all it does is confuse people, and it doesn't allow you to
Yeah,
see the true history. At least that's just from my perspective. So at this particular time, during the mid 1600s or going into the 1700s, South Carolina and North Carolina are officially North Carolina.
yeah, it's all South Carolina didn't exist yet.
And the thing that I found interesting here is that it says since the Western were traditionally enemies with nearly every other tribe in the region, their alliance with Carolina effectively blocked the colony from establishing any other tribal relationship. So it was basically bullying a colony in North Carolina. It says a group of Shawnee Indians migrated to the Savannah River region and met with the Westo. So these Shawnee came in or migrated in. Right, Macadam? What is confusing if you don't pay attention. It says, so these Shawnee were outsiders. It says they migrated to the Savannah River region and met with the Westo while Henry Woodward was among them. So Henry Wood was among the Shawnee, or was Henry Wood with um, the Westo? Okay, he was with the Westo. It says these Shawnee became known as the Savannah Indians. It says Woodward apparently witnessed the first meeting of the Shawnee and the Westo. Using sign language, the Shawnee warned the Westo of an impending attack from other tribes. They earned the goodwill of the Westo when he began to prepare for the attack. So hold on. What do you find challenging with that statement? The challenge I see is that you got a tribe that's migrated from somewhere else that are meeting with the Westo, and they're using sign language to let them know that there's a pending attack. So let's see. Savannah later approached the Woodward and established an independent relationship with the colonists, which would doom the Westo. The Carolinas realized the value of the trading beyond the Westo. When war broke out between Carolina and Westo in 1679, the Savannah Shawnee assisted the Carolinians. After they destroyed the Westo in 1680, the Savannah moved into their lands and took over their role as the chief Indian trading partner with the Carolina colony. The fate of most of the surviving Westo was probably enslavement and shipment to the work of sugarcane plantations in the West Indies. Bones, are you looking at this? It says some surviving Westo may have continued to live near the colony of South Carolina. A map published anonymously in 1715 shows Indian villages during the period about 1691 to 1715, when the early Creek towns had relocated from the Chattahoochee River on the Ocmulgee River and Oconee River. The map shows a town labeled Westus. All the towns' labels are pluralized. On the Ocmulgee River above the Towalega River confluence. It is one of the clusters of towns near the important Lower Creek town of Coweta. The 1750 map shows town locations at sometime between 1691 and 1750, where the Lower Creek moved their towns back to the Chattahoochee River. The town appears on the Mitchell map of 1755 just below the town of Ichis, as with several other groups of Indian refugees who found haven with the Lower Creeks. The apparent fate of surviving Westo was absorption into the emerging Creek Confederacy. So it looks like the Westo will eventually merge. So it looks like the Westo were merged into the Creek Confederation after they got sold out by the Shawnee. Hmm. So I wonder if the colonists reached out to the Shawnee and had them come in and run interference. I don't know. I'm gonna repost this in the chat so people can take a look at it because it's interesting. All right, so that was dealing with the Westo. And the reason why we were talking about the Westo because we were looking at a anthropologist, Martin Smith, had theorized that the Westo were the Cherokee, but from looking at that, they were not. So hopefully we'll be able to speak with a Cherokee Indian. Doodle Vision said the Westos are mainly known as
See what he
Northern
said.
Creek. Yeah. So, James, when you get a chance, come on in. I sent you the link. It's also in the back chat. Having a Choctaw perspective on this would be very helpful, considering that the Cherokee, according to this information, were the ones that were the gateway to y'all having y'all problems with the Europeans. He said that tell the half truth, and that's the reason why it's important for us to not only have a perspective of written works or um, the writings from Wikipedia and such, but it's also very pertinent and important to have perspective of actual tribal members who actually know the oral history and the written history of tribes. So, you know, that's what we try to do. We try to give all perspective, not just one perspective and say which perspective is right and which is wrong. Because if you have everybody's perspective, then it just makes it easy for people to follow along and get the information. And if you know anybody that's Cherokee, that's on the Eastern Band, we would love to speak with them and clear the record. But for the most part, we try to expose people to information so they can do their own research. And our goal is not to convince you of anything, but to get you to do your research and hopefully helps you with finding your tribe and find out what happened to not only your tribe, but the tribes in your neighboring area. So hopefully that answers any questions that anyone in the chat may have. So, so we were discussing Cherokee, and we'll put that back in the chat so people can see where we're at, so they can do their own research. And there was one more thing I wanted to address before we continue on to the 18th century. And it was talking about the Cherokee. The Cherokee people were actually going around doing raids, but Wikipedia is trying to make it seem as though that the Cherokee were actually the Western who was actually doing the raids. So again, got to pay attention, read for understanding, understand how they kidnap the information and twist it to confuse us. Just like they mentioned in South Carolina in the early 1600s, when South Carolina did not become a state until after 1780. So that's why it's always good to pay attention to everything that we're reading. And that's the reason why we post information in the chat so that we can get the information right. So last thing that they talk about the Cherokee in the 17th century is that Cherokee were among Native American peoples who sold the traders Indian slaves for use as laborers in Virginia and further north. They took them as captives and raids on enemy tribes. So it says that Cherokee were raiding enemy tribes and selling them to the traders or to the colonizers. So something to think about. If you want to go ahead and continue reading, that's cool. If not, I can take over and start reading because now we're on the 1800s, dealing with the Cherokee. So I will go ahead and read. Let's see where we're at.
Mic check.
Yeah,
Were we on 18th?
yeah, 18th century.
All right. Get my split screen on. Hold up.
Now take your time. Again, we got to remember that this information is not provided to convince or insist anything. The information is here merely for exposure and for further research. and we ask questions, and we try our best to stay away from making speculations, which is a reason why we reach out to actual Indians and tribes to make sure we get the information. Anybody that's been a part of this autonomous assembly process as we go through this will know that that's what we do. So our goal is not to tell you who you are or tell you who these Indians are. Our goal is to provide the information, do the research together, ask the proper questions and appropriate questions, and hopefully we're able to come across some Indians who know the history, who can give a different perspective, if you will. So hopefully that helps for all those who are here, who are trying to figure out what a Thompson Assembly is about. Um, at the end of the day, we're here to help those who want to do their genealogy and find their tribes. And if you find out that you have um, you are part of an Indian tribe, then our goal is to help you connect with that tribe and not only help yourself and your family or your relatives become self-sufficient, but if you choose, help that tribe to become self-sufficient. So, without further ado, let's continue to move forward. Grand Rising, Oak Cliff Tiff. So, so whenever you're ready, no sell out.
All right, 18th century. The Cherokee gave sanctuary to a band of Shawnee in the 1660s, but from 1710 to 1715, the Cherokee and Chickasaw allied with the British and fought the Shawnee, who were allied with the French, and forced them to move northward. Peace to the flames. The Cherokee fought with the Yamasee, Catawba, and British in late 1712 and early 1713 against the Tuscarora in the Second Tuscarora War. The Tuscarora War marked the beginning of a British-Cherokee relationship that, despite breaking down on occasion, remained strong for much of the 18th century. With the growth of the deerskin trade, the Cherokee were considered valuable trading partners since deerskins from the cooler country of their mountain hunting grounds were of a better quality than those supplied by the lowland tribes who were neighbors of the English colonists.
Stop right there.
Yep.
You know it's gonna get deep.
Hmm.
So you have Cherokee giving sanctuary to the Shawnee. Remember, the Shawnee were the ones that sold the Westo out, according to Wikipedia. Again, hopefully we'll be able to have James Flame come in, aka Choctaw Jimmy, to straighten that out or give some credence to that or let us know who they were. And it shows that the Cherokee and the Chickasaw allied with the British and fought the Shawnee, who were allied with the French and forced them to move northward. Then it says the Cherokee fought the Yamasee, Catawba, and British in late 1712 and early 1713. Now, 1712 is where it stated that North Carolina and South Carolina started having different views and were looking to start to separate, but they hadn't separated yet. In early 1713, against the Tuscarora in the Second Tuscarora War, the Tuscarora War marked the beginning of the British-Cherokee relationship that, despite breaking down on occasion, remained strong for much of the 18th century. So we're starting to see here how sides are being chosen, just like up north. So, James, can you help us straighten this out a little bit? Because it seems to be getting deep already. We haven't even left the 1700s yet.
All these wars and rumors of wars. It's like glass in my head, like John Coffey from the Green Mile. Man, this is crazy. I, I wanted to go back a little bit, and then we gonna go forward. You see how they try to twist everything up and switch everything around. In the beginning, they said that the Westo with Cherokee. You find out that they were actually Creek, but the Creek were separate. You had the Northern Creek and you had the Southern Creek. The Southern Creek were known better as your Massey. Your Northern Creek were those Westos. And now you're going to find out too, going back to Charleston or Charlestown, that was a main port for slaves. And see how they try to use slaves and African synonymously, and they're not one and the same. These slaves they were talking about are Indian slaves. This is going to dispel the myth of people saying that the Gullah Geechee are African. They are not African. They are not African. The Gullah or the Gullah, as the French call them, are Indians, and they were being taken. That leads you to Blackbeard. Blackbeard, they try to say he was English. Blackbeard was not. Blackbeard was a caribou, and he was giving them HE double hockey sticks when they knew what they were doing. Now, that whole area of the Carolinas that you all have mentioned, you will also find a lot of French towns and French settlements because at one point that was called Francois. That whole area there, the French had named that Francois. So you start seeing the ties with the French, which explains why the Gullah Geechee speak patois. Remember, patois is a mixture between the Southern French language and the indigenous Indian languages that were already there. So this is where the French start coming in on all of these different, and then the Spanish would have come in a little bit later on. But that whole area there was called Francois. And I have an old map. I think I posted in the back chat. That was either last week or the week before. But you'll find where the French were all there, but there was a separation. You have Northern Creek, which were your sellouts. And no offense to no sellout, because he's not a sellout, so that's why he has no in front of his name. But there were the sellouts, and then you had the Southern Creek known as the Yamasee or the Yamasee, there to the south. So, but your Westo was a part of that Northern Creek, and they were the ones getting the guns, which leads you, that's why I put in the chat, this is the beginning or the origins of your Buffalo Soldiers. I hope that I helped out a little bit. I hope I didn't confuse anyone. I'll yield the mic and I'll come back later if I'm needed.
So, James, what you're saying is that what's happening right now with the Creek, they're the beginning of what is known now as the Buffalo Soldiers. So these were Indians, not slaves, or ex-slaves, or former slaves, or free slaves that were responsible for protecting the colonists and rounding up or running interference on the Indians. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, sir. Because as we said before, two things. One, if I'm a slave and you give me a gun, I'm not going to work for you. I am going to wipe you off the face of the planet. That's one. So it's not even logical that you're going to give someone that you have kidnapped, beaten, like I said again, and cut off their toes so they can't run away. All of a sudden, you're gonna make them soldiers. It's not logical. Two, if a tribe were to see a European coming, you can spot them from a mile away. How are all these Indians becoming enslaved by quote unquote Europeans? They're not. They're being enslaved by people that look like them. They get in close to them. I use the same example again that I've always used with the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers did not fall from outside interference. It was people that looked like them that were on the inside that infiltrated. This is why the Westo were able to do what they were doing because they were already in that land. And the government kept giving them guns, get back to the guns and the rum, the guns and the rum. This is why the conflict was going on between the Westo and the Catawba Suponi. Because the Catawba Suponi remained true to who they were in that area, and the Yamasee remained truthful to who they were in that area. And then also the Seminoles, because we know the Seminoles didn't start it was Florida, but it didn't start in the area that we know as Florida today. They started in Georgia. So we'll probably get to that a little bit later. So all these names, make sure you keep track of it and go back and study Blackbeard. And they'll try to tell you, oh, Blackbeard didn't know Blackbeard. Blackbeard was from the Bahamas. And then you'll find out where Blackbeard was buried, where he died. then you will understand that Blackbeard was Gullah. He was Gullah Geechee. I yield the mic.
Man, you just can't drop a nugget like that and then yield the mic.
You know I can't follow it.
LJ Free says, tell it, Doodle, there's nothing new under the sun that's still happening today. Someone always tries to creep in and cause division. Yeah, that's what they do. Because the only ones that can come in and cause division are people that look like us. So Blackbeard was a Gullah Geechee. Y'all heard it, panel. Y'all heard the chat. Got some homework to do. Blackbeard. Get a chance, look him up.
All right. Oops. Hold on. Clicked the wrong thing.
And for those that have any doubt, they can get with Professor James Smalls, because Professor James Smalls is Gullah Geechee. He's admitted it, but he was on his Back to Africa kick because he said that we were not ready for the truth. We didn't want the truth. We wanted to say we were from Africa. But Professor James Smalls is Gullah Geechee, and he talks about his people being the mound builders and how his people would mourn before the mounds. Do your homework of Professor James Smalls. I yield the mic.
Fantastic. Grand Rising, Aboriginal Power. And Macadon, Golden Moon, aka KD, says the Seminoles were also the first Texas Rangers. Really? That's interesting.
Yes. Remember the pictures we were talking about on being July?
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones that were there on the border. And if you notice that being July's uniform, it says Seminole, and he was guarding the Texas-Mexican border. They're the same uniforms as the Buffalo Soldiers that he's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Buffalo Soldier uniform. That's what I'm saying. It was us. It was us capturing us, being the slave catchers of Indians. Nowhere do you see anything about African. It says Indian slave. But then they go on and then they say African slave, and you start thinking slave, African, slave, African, because you keep hearing this so much. They pulled a former president. He said if you said it 3 times, even though it's a lie, people will believe it's the truth. Because through the whole reading, it talks about Indian slaves. I yield the mic.
Go ahead, Bones. What you about to say?
Being funny. I'm like, what? Chuck Norris was a Seminole? Texas Walker's Range? Somebody stop. Just add a little smiles just rising.
Yeah, that's why the Lone Ranger was based upon an Indian.
Yeah, there's stories that the Lone Ranger was based upon an Indian who was heavily melanated and who had a stellar record, mind you. Grand Rising, David Corey. Glad to see you in the chat. And LJ Free. She was saying she was responding to Golden Moon. She's an interesting. She just read that Seminoles also had some of the most beautiful women ever seen. We've got to dig deeper into them. Yeah, we will, Free. We will get into the women because that's something that appears to be highly misrepresented, highly underrepresented, were the elders and the wisdom of the tribes, which were the women, which history does a great job to the great disrespect to our women of ignoring their importance and what role they played in not only uplifting the tribes, but also creating a doorway for some of this tomfoolery. But yeah. Grand Rising, Arthur Gray. Hope all is well. We are covering the Cherokee War, and thus far we've discovered that it has been speculated by anthropologists that the Westo, who were a tribe that were causing havoc in the Virginia colonies, were supposed to be, and I'm using air quotes, the Cherokee, when we dig a little deeper, we found out that the West still had nothing to do with the Cherokee. They were actually going around enslaving Cherokee and Choctaw, and eventually they were, quote unquote, using air quotes again, wiped out by the Shawnee. Well, now we're talking about some of the alliances and some of the separation between the tribes when it comes to Chickasaw, Shawnee, Yamasee, Catawba, and the Tuscarora Wars on the 18th century. And when we talk about Cherokee, so I will go ahead and put the link back in the chat so you can, if you're able to, catch up.
Yep.
With that being
But a
said,
complete hard hat and steel toe boot zone. Complete hard hat and steel toe zone. Won't take it off for a second.
because it's going to be some falling information, going to be able to see through a lot of stuff. So, I'm sorry, no sellout. You can go ahead and continue. I got to find my spot. If you're able to. I know I didn't been interrupting you.
No, I'm trying to find out where I was at.
Yeah, you was on the second paragraph as reasons in January
In
17,
January
16.
1760.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excuse me. In January 1716, Cherokee murdered a delegation of Muskogee Creek leaders at the town of Tougaloo, marking their entry into the Yamasee War. It ended in 1717 with peace treaties between the colony of South Carolina and the Creek. Hostility and sporadic raids between the Cherokee and Creek continued for decades. These raids came to a head at the Battle of the Taliwa in 1755, present-day Ball Ground, Georgia, with the defeat of the Muskogee.
Okay, stop. So this is what I'm seeing, and I don't know if anybody else caught it. Grand Rising, you don't want it. Do you see where no cell I was reading in the second sentence? It says it ended in 1717 with peace treaties between the colony of South Carolina. So this is how they're starting to separate North Carolina from South Carolina. It was called a colony first, and then it became a state. So they created a colony in North Carolina, southern part of North Carolina, and then eventually the colony became a state. So I can only speculate, and Brother James, you can add in what you know, is that this colony is where they started doing, if I got this correctly, they started squatting on some of the territory in North Carolina so they can create a state in separation in South Carolina. Am I close? Maybe not. Anyway, that's my speculation. But they're talking about the colony of South Carolina, not to be confused with the state of South Carolina. South Carolina didn't become a state until after 1780. So we got to pay attention to how things are written up. And it's interesting that they're talking about a Tougaloo, which is a town in at this particular point, which is in North Carolina, but we all know that there's a Tougaloo, Mississippi, right? And this is in Georgia. They said this Tougaloo River is in Georgia. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones.
No, I'm saying, yeah. And we got to remember, also depends on the year this conversation and stuff is happening, too. What year it's in.
This is in 1716. So Georgia is still Indian territory. And they're trying
all
to...
of Georgia.
Right. They're trying to separate South Carolina, or they're trying to create a state of South Carolina within the state of North Carolina by calling it a South Carolina colony. That's just my speculation. Grand Rising, Ladaria Woods, hope all is well.
Peace. Grand Rising.
We're talking about the Cherokee Wars, and we're going over some Cherokee history, and we're in the 18th century on the dealing with the Cherokee with Wikipedia. The link is in the chat, so you should be able to grab a hold of it and keep up or catch up. So,
Oh, and those who want to push the research on further, at the bottom of the Wikipedia pages, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, all the source books where you can actually go to the library and look up the books or pull the microfiche, they're always at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. So if you want to do further research or vet the research that's on the Wikipedia page, the source information is always at the bottom.
Yeah,
Just a quick.
yeah. They don't
It's always
always.
at.
They don't always go to other Wikipedia links.
No, you can get the information, find out the book, find out. Then we do just look them up.
Yeah, a lot of these books are free, and if you look up Google Play Books or just Google eBooks, most of the time you don't even have to pay for them. You can just download them. If you have an Android device, it'll be in your Playbooks app.
yeah, you can also just look up sometimes you can just look up the PDF version, which basically is the ebook. For us more chronologically gifted people that don't know what the ebook is. I'm just speaking for those people.
Yeah. PD.
Get that PD, forget the F.
Golden Moon says that Seminole people were a mixture of different clans. He says his mom's people, and the Ward was he said Ward was their last name, was part of what is called the Texas, what they call Texas, helping the U.S. Army locate the Indians. Wow. You know what? No, sounds like we're gonna have to do a community spotlight on Golden Moon. I'm just saying.
Line 'em up.
Speaking of community spotlight, Pamela Hall, did you get the email that I sent you in reference to being able to speak with us after we speak today? Just let us know. I'm sorry, no sellout. Go ahead and I interrupted you.
We're in
1721. Yes, sir. So you can go ahead. You know you're gonna get interrupted again, but I'm just letting you know. My bad.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I'm practicing some of these words.
So ready when you are.
The Cherokee ceded lands in South Carolina in 1730 at Niquosi, a former Mississippian culture site. A Scots adventurer, Sir Alexander Cumming, crowned Moitoy of Toledo as Emperor of the Cherokee. Moitoy agreed to recognize King George II of Great Britain as the Cherokee protector. Cumming arranged to take 7 prominent Cherokee, including Atakulakula, to London, England. There, the Cherokee delegation signed the Treaty of Whitehall with the British. Moitoy's son, Amos Gatsite, Dreadful Water, attempted to succeed him as emperor in 1741, but the Cherokee elected their own leader, Konokotako Old Hop of Chota.
Hold on.
I'm holding.
So, Emperor of the Cherokee? Where they do that at? Oh,
Starting a new trend.
Okay, so I could tell Antonio is related to you. He says chronologically gifted. Oh, you mean yes, Antonio. I'm talking about older, not old. Thank you. Anyway, back to our regular schedule program.
Terrible.
So in 1721, it said Cherokee ceded lands in South Carolina. So basically what it's saying is Cherokee ceded lands to the South Carolina colony because they didn't become a state until 1788. So they're already ceding these lands to the colony of South Carolina. Then it says in 1730 at Niquosi, a former Mississippian culture site, a scout's adventures, Sir Alexander Cumming crowned Moitoy of Tellico as Emperor of the Cherokee. So how much you want to bet that Moitoi was responsible for this land being seceded? And that's the reason why they wanted to name this individual, this prominent leader, Emperor of the Cherokee. Who is this Moitoi? Put your hard hats on, good people.
Moitoi of Toledo.
I'm apologizing in advance if I mispronounce the name. It says, and this is according to Wikipedia. Again, the sources in Wikipedia are at the bottom of the page so you can do your own research. Okay. And it goes on to read, it says, Moitoi of Toledo died in 1741. Amo-Adawihi in Cherokee. So Amo-Adawihi, it means rainmaker, was a prominent leader of the Cherokee in the American Southeast. He was given title of Emperor of the Cherokee by Sir Alexander Cumming, a Scots Anglo trade envoy in what was the province of South Carolina, and is regularly referred to as King in official English reports, as this was a familiar term of rank to colonists. He was the Great Toledo, an historic Cherokee town in what is now Tennessee. So, because we know that the Carolinas and Virginia touches Tennessee. So at this particular point in time, this was considered, I would dare say, North Carolina or either Virginia. Let's see. 1730, Cumming, a Scottish adventurer with ties to the colonial government of South Carolina, arranged for Moitoi to be crowned emperor over all the Cherokee towns in a ceremony intended to appeal to Cumming's colonial sponsors. Cherokee was crowned in the town of Oo-watie with a headdress referred to as the Crown of Tennessee. Or Tennessee. Cumming arranged to take Moitoi and a group of Cherokee to England to meet King George II. Moitoi declined to go, saying that his wife was ill. And Takula, which is Little Carpenter, volunteered to go in his place. The Cherokee laid the crown at King George's feet along with 4 scalps. According to some authorities, Moitoi's wife was a woman named Gusa-Du-Iska. After the death of Moitoi, his son, Mus-Gusit, tried to succeed him as emperor. However, by 1753, Konokotoko, Old Hop of Chota and Overhill towns had emerged as a dominant leader in the area. So, I don't know if y'all are paying attention to this or if I'm reading it right, but think about this. I know, right? Free Tennessee. You have a scout who takes a Indian, Cherokee Indian, and gives him the title of Emperor of the Cherokee. And it says Moitoi of Toledo was a prominent leader of the Cherokee. It didn't say he was a chief. It said he was a prominent leader. So you take this European or this Scot, and he gives this Cherokee leader, not chief, the title of Emperor of the Cherokee. Don't you think that would cause division? Or is that just me?
You gotta
It told you they did. that they embellish stories to incite jealousy. Remember, we read that probably about a month ago.
Right.
They spread these rumors on purpose.
And then they end up sending them to London to meet King George II.
Then on them being in Tennessee, calling it Carolina, that's correct. Because we got to remember, the states were claiming land first, all the way over to what we know as the Mississippi. Carolina claimed that in a straight line. Virginia claimed straight across. Georgia was still being disputed as a territory. So yeah, that's correct.
Grand Rising Marlon P. Yeah. And remember, we was doing some research on Old Hop of Chota this morning. And, yeah, relatives. This is about to get deep, really deep. And then James drops on us that that this is basically the start of the Buffalo Soldiers, who are actually Indians. So where were we at? Now we're in 1741 and
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I think I even posted that in the other back chat of what the states were doing at this time.
Yeah, you did. I'll
because remember how New York had land all in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can find that.
That Tallahassee sits where the original Tallahassee sits without all state is today. That's 20. Yeah, they did a whole lot of shit.
It's just interesting how these maps are very important. Flounceborough says we're in a time machine. It's more than just a time machine.
That makes sure I be memorizing them dates. So when I hear them again in the locations, I'll be like, hold on, You're 10 years too early.
We are in.
But I think I remember before that they were forming states before they actually had the land to.
You can't do that.
Just thinking.
Free says she says accountability is about to go to a whole nother level. How many pots did we have our hands in at once? Looks like we had our hands in a lot of pots, and there was a lot of double dealing, not only among the tribes, but among the Europeans. So we are just as culpable as they are.
If I'm correct, at this time, Ohio, this stuff existed. You had an area with Ohio River. When they be talking about the Ohio a lot, they be talking about the river, but these states don't exist yet.
No, they don't. But they're starting out as, it looks like they're starting out as colonies. And
Ohio colony, they use the squatters in them colonies to get to use land and start forming states.
That's crazy, right?
The way some books read, you would think Michigan and all this stuff exists right now. It doesn't.
No.
All that's Indian territory at this time. Still.
You got to remember, this time, this is before the Revolutionary War. So there's still a lot of relationships being built with the Indians so they can get their soldiers up. But you're right, they started off as forts, end up being colonies, and then from colonies, they end up turning into states. That's how they was doing it.
It was turned into squatters. turned into squatters, then became states.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so where are we at now? We are.
Talk to my congressman.
What was that, Bones? I'll go ahead and pick
No, you said where we at now.
He said about to go talk to my congressman.
up.
Oh,
Hold on now. Y'all need to explain something.
You breaking up, Bones. You was doing good. We had you,
Yeah,
all of a
all right.
sudden, you just started.
See, they don't.
Take over.
I guess they pick and choose what they gonna let me. Yeah, they pick and choose what they gonna let me say.
Okay.
Pretty much. Hey, teammate, I can finish up this last paragraph before the picture.
Okay. That's
and then
cool.
you can get that description, I guess you can get to. And then I'll let you take over.
Yeah, that's cool. That's fine.
All right. Political power among the Cherokee remained decentralized and towns acted autonomously. In 1735, the Cherokee were estimated to have 64 towns and villages and 6,000 fighting men. In 1738 and 1739, smallpox epidemics broke out among the Cherokee, who had no natural immunity to the new infectious disease. Nearly half of their population died within a year. Hundreds of their other Cherokee committed suicide due to their losses and disfigurement from the disease.
Really? Wow. Dude, they just said, here comes the smallpox stuff. Come on, James. Correct this. Set the record straight, brother.
When they ain't gonna talk about why they keep putting on smallpox, why they ain't gonna talk about all them pigs that the Spanish left here that pushed them diseases around. Real truth, what happened.
Free says Fort Wayne, Indiana still has a section called the Old Fort, which they take elementary children to annually for a field trip. Really? Okay. She says 30 small.
Because my thing is this: how did they give? See, this is what we need to start breaking down all of this stuff that don't make sense. So they carry blankets infected with smallpox. With what? What did they carry these blankets with, y'all?
That's a good question.
What did they rub the smallpox into the blanket with? Come on. They would have to have somebody with smallpox. What, they had them roll around in a bunch of blankets, then they folded them up and brought them over here. Everybody on the ship would have died. It was the animals that these foreigners bought that spreaded these diseases. Them doggone pigs.
And those pigs, they do have a meal called pigs in a blanket, so maybe that's what they're talking about.
It was the pigs. What other animal lives in close proximity to human beings but can transfer the same exact diseases? Pigs. Anything you catch, a pig can catch. Anything a pig can catch, a pig can give to a human being. Study them pigs.
Free said their immune system isn't strong enough to do all that. Transmit smallpox.
Exactly.
And then give it to us.
You got to realize, when British came, a lot of us was already dead by the time they got here. Because the Spanish left them pigs around our people for over 200 years. To this day in Texas, they still got that problem with them wild hogs.
Yep.
They spread all type of disease more than anything else. It was our proximity to them pigs that started getting us sick. You see it now. Live too close to farm animals. Watch what happened to you.
I guess James is not in a position where he can talk to us right now. So, yeah, when you get a chance, James, just come on, chime on in. But, yeah, they're starting this smallpox talk.
Oh yeah, like Brother Bones was saying, I apologize. Part of what Brother Bones was saying is definitely on point. You think about those pigs and the diseases that they have, and then the other part was we were becoming enslaved, and now we're quote unquote Africans. So you see how our numbers start dwindling between the pig, the swine disease, and us being kidnapped and then labeled as African slaves.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
figure 29 years later, the first census comes out, 1790.
Oh, go ahead. And think about it. Ain't no Africans or blacks on that. It's only what? Free persons of color, free white persons, and slave. First census only had 3 categories. So how are these people African and there's no man, let me stop. About to make me mad this rising again.
Yeah, Pantera Uncle says them pigs also ripped through our crops. Yeah, they destroyed everything.
This foolery. Especially when you learn the majority of all diseases were brought here. Syphilis, all that stuff was brought here to the Americas. People bought that stuff here through their bodies or through animals. All these animals that's not native to this landmass.
So is it also safe to say this is how some of our animals end up dying off? Was because of these pigs as well?
Yeah, a lot of the pigs and all other animals that they bought. Think about it now. What's the fastest way people get sick in society? Through this meat,
Mm-hmm.
through animals that had contact with things that you can still see it.
Yeah.
And think about it, in our diet, it's kind of funny. A lot of our people eat it, but you never realize pork is one of the worst things for our diet. It gives us the high blood pressure that, man, makes your whole body up. Because it was never naturally here. It was something that was introduced here.
The Golden Moon says you can hunt wild hogs all year round in Texas because they destroy the land. Antonio said,
Yeah, they
Antonio told me to pause on pigs and blank. It was tongue in cheek, Antonio.
Yeah, they even built full mechanized machines that release poison to try to kill them. There's so many wild feral hogs between out there in Texas and the swamps in Florida. They override them. I mean, they don't really talk about it, but if you into like the wildlife and stuff like that, you can get the reports and they let you know.
Yeah. All right, so let me go ahead finish this up right quick, and then we can do some more building on it. American colonist Henry Timberlake. I wonder if he's related to Justin Timberlake. The Cherokee people as he saw them in 1761. So this is Henry Timberlake's viewpoint of the Cherokee people in 1761. The Cherokees are of a middle stature, of an olive color, though generally painted, and their skin stained with gunpowder, pricked into it. Very pretty figures. The hair of their head is shaved, though many of the old people have it plucked out by the roots, except a patch in the hinder part of their head, about twice the bigness of a crow piece, which is ornamented with beads, feathers, wampum stained deer's hair, and such like baubles. The ears are slit and stretched to an enormous size, putting the person who undergoes the operation through incredible pain, being unable to lie on either side for nearly 40 days. To remedy this, they generally slit.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Don't this sound like a lot of the things they tried to tell you made you African?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that just stood out to me. Like, wow, these Indians are doing things that they tried to teach you that was African traditions. The stretch ears, the slits. Come on, man.
It says these ears are slit and stretched to a normal size, putting the person who undergoes this operation to incredible pain, being unable to lie on either side for nearly 40 days. To remedy this, they generally slit, but at one at a time. So soon as the patient can bear it, they wound wound with wire to expand them, and are adorned with silver pendants and rings, which they likewise wear at the nose. This custom does not belong originally to the Cherokee, but taken by them from the Shawnee or other northern nations. They that can afford it wear a collar of wampum, which are beads cut out of clamshells, a silver breastplate, and bracelets on their arms and wrists of the same metal, a bit of cloth over their private parts, a shirt of the English make a sort of cloth boots, and moccasins, which they call sick, which are shoes of a make peculiar to the Americans, ornamented with porcupine quills, a large mantle of match coat thrown over all complete their dress at home.
That's some zero J's, some first J's. But on a serious note, it's kind of funny. Everything you just described are the same descriptions they try to tell you made people African.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing what you find in the rising when you with the relatives.
J. Free says those are typically Hamitic practices. So from 1753 to 1755, battles broke out between the Cherokee and Muskogee over disputed hunting grounds in North Georgia. The Cherokee were vicious in battle at Oothcaloga. British soldiers built forts in Cherokee country to defend against the French in the 7 Years' War, which was fought across Europe and was called the French and Indian War, on the Northern American front. These
What did they say it was fought across?
He said it was fought across Europe. It was called the French and Indian War. So what did they have? Indians go over into Europe and fight as well?
Well, we know that had to happen. We didn't get to it yet, but the Opium Wars, Indians were over there fighting. I mean, where else did the U.S. get their military from? Where them soldiers come from? They didn't send them over here. And now I wouldn't think Britain would be sending America soldiers when at this time they're enemies. So who are these American soldiers again?
Sounds like they're us. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, I could be wrong. It says these included Fort Loudon near Chota. In 1756, the Cherokee were allies of the British in the French and Indian War. Serious misunderstandings arose quickly between the two allies, resulting in the 1760 Anglo-Cherokee War. King George III's Royal Proclamation of 1763 forbade British settlers west of the Appalachian Crest, as his government tried to afford some protection from the colonial encroachment of the Cherokee and other tribes. The Crown found the ruling difficult to enforce for colonists. So this goes into what James was talking about when it came about the what do you call them? What you call them in Appalachians?
The Appalachians, yeah, because west of the Appalachians, that's Ohio.
Yeah. Talking about the Melungeons.
To New York, if I'm correct. Yeah, it runs through New York. New York state, not the city.
Free says, hearing stuff like this reminds me once again the importance of genealogy and knowing who you are. That's true. Don't want to be calling yourself an Indian and you're wearing inappropriate garb and dress. She might be wearing a garb and dress of a known enemy.
Know your people, know thyself.
So at this time, though, 1763, some 20 years before South Carolina is brought into the Union made a state, the British are forbidding settlements west of the Appalachian. Try to, but it said, but here's the thing that's interesting. It says to protect, hold on, to offer some protection from colonial encroachment to the Cherokee and other tribes. Okay, I was reading it wrong. I'm thinking, why would the Cherokee be encroaching on their own land? So yeah, this is to keep those settlements from trying to squat on Cherokee land and getting their head taken off. Baltimore says they left enough breadcrumbs for us to see that most of the soldiers were us. That's what it looks like.
But this is my thing. With all these Indian raids, all these wars against the Indians, why when every time we read about Indians raiding a village or a home, where these slaves at?
That's a good question. Because you would figure you would
They
hear about.
busting in.
You would
Yeah, you
definitely
would hear
probably hear
about
more about them capturing slaves after taking over. Yeah.
Yeah, they taking over whole villages and towns, but you don't hear nothing about no slaves. The only slave talk you hear is about Indians being enslaved. You not hearing about them snatching up nobody else, going to no town, killing off everybody. I haven't even heard them kill a African slave yet in all these wars. What's really going on?
And according to this time, slavery is still legal, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you got a problem, and this is my thing, if you got all these slaves, right, and you got a problem with these Indians raiding, why didn't you just get slaves ammo to fight? You tell us you did that for some of these wars. You say it happened in the Civil War. So if you had these people that were so entrenched to serving you, they wasn't trying to get away. Why? It just sounds crazy to me. I got 100-something people on plantation.
I think Bones is starting to
But I'm
make too
not
much
having no
sense.
for my family.
You're coming in really choppy, Bones. Obviously, you're making too much sense because we can't hear a word you're saying, bro.
I was just saying, it's funny how they'll tell you that they had all these slaves at this plantation, but then the house get raided and Indians come in there and kill the whole family.
Yeah.
You got enough to hold 100 people in check. You can hold 100 people in check before Indians slaughtered the whole household. There's something wrong with this story. Come on, man.
So the overseers that were guarding the slave quarter, so the slaves wouldn't escape, didn't see the Indians coming.
That's what I'm like. Come on.
So in 1771 through 1772, North Carolina settlers squatted on Cherokee lands in Tennessee, forming the Ooga Association. You know who they are, right? Bones, you know who the Ooga Association is, right?
Those are ones that were allowed to identify as a tribe, if I'm right.
That's right.
They were the first. They were your first Americans, your first Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
They were born here. They had no allegiance to no tribe. They had no allegiance back to the British Crown. Yeah.
So North Carolinian settlers squatted on Cherokee lands in Tennessee, forming the Ooga Association. It says Daniel Boone and his party tried to settle in Kentucky, but the Shawnee, Delaware, Mingo, and some Cherokee attacked a scouting and forage party that included Boone's son. The American Indians used this territory as a hunting ground by right of conquest. It had hardly been inhabited for years. The conflict in Kentucky sparked the beginning of what it was known as Dunmore's War. Oak Cliff Tip says Wada. I pronounced it Wada, but it's actually spelled Watauga. So it's Wataga. Well, at least that's what it looks like to me. The Watauga Association. Watauga. Watauga or Watauga or Watauga, excuse me.
And remember this bit of information about them. They are the children of the colonizers
Mm-hmm.
that were allowed to form a tribe because they were born on this landmass.
And it's funny that they're called an association. So let's click on this to see what we get. I'm going to put this link in here, in the chat for everyone. That way y'all have the actual correct spelling.
Repeating what LJ Free said earlier, that's why genealogy is important, to know who you tie back to. Because a lot of these that you want to call foreigners, some of them tie back to these tribes that were allowed to be formed.
So, the Watauga Association, sometimes referred to as the Republic of Watauga, was a semi-autonomous government created in 1772 by frontier settlers living along the Watauga River in what is now Elizabethtown, Tennessee. Although it lasted only a few years, the Watauga Association provided a basis for what later developed into a state of Tennessee and likely influenced other western frontier governments in the Trans-Appalachian region. North Carolina annexed the Watauga settlement area by then known as the Washington District in November 1776. Within a year, the area was placed under a county government, becoming Washington County, North Carolina, in November 1777. This is present-day Washington County, Carter County, and other areas now located in the northeast part of the state of Tennessee. Somebody trying to say something? Grand Rising Takeover. It says, while there is no evidence that the Watauga Association ever claimed to be outside the sovereign territory of the British Crown, historians have often cited the association as the earliest attempt by American-born colonists to form an independent democratic government. In 1774, Virginia Governor Lord Dunmore called the Watauga Association a dangerous example of Americans forming a government distinct from and independent of its majesty's authority. President Theodore Roosevelt later wrote that the Watauga settlers were the first men of American birth to establish a free and independent community on the continent. While no copy of the Settlers' Compact, known as the Articles of the Watauga Association, has ever been found, related documents tend to imply that the Watauga settlers still considered themselves British subjects, even after initial hostilities of the American Revolution had commenced.
It's funny how they do this. Then in 1776, America forms with a declaration.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of odd.
So it says European settlers began arriving in the Watauga, Nolichucky, and Holston River valleys in the late 1760s and early 1770s. Most migrated from Virginia via the Great Valley, although a few were believed to have been regulators fleeing North Carolina after their defeat at Battle of Alamance. These settlers mistakenly believed, or at least claimed to have believed, the Watauga and Nolichucky valleys were part of land ceded to Virginia by the Cherokee in 1770, which was the Treaty of Lochaber. But a subsequent survey by Colonel John Donaldson confirmed that these lands were still part of the Cherokee domain. As settlement on lands west of colonial boundaries violated the Royal Proclamation of 1763, meaning they weren't supposed to go past Appalachia, the Watauga and Nolichucky settlers were ordered to leave. In May 1772, the Watauga and Nolichucky settlers negotiated a 10-year lease directly with the Cherokee, and being outside the claims of any colony, established the Watauga Association to provide basic government functions. Stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so they set aside a separate agreement with the Cherokee for a 10-year lease outside the claims of any colony. So they established their own government with the help of the Cherokee.
Hmm. It's like they said, it's the first democratic government set up on this land.
That's the reason why they was
And it's
considered.
kind of funny.
Right.
They do this, and the next thing you hear is the United States did it in 1776. Well, America, 1776.
So it says in May 1772, the Watauga and Nolichucky settlers negotiated. Okay, I read that part. It says the lease and the subsequent purchase of these lands in 1775 were considered illegal by the British Crown and were vehemently opposed by the growing faction of the Cherokee led by young Chief Dragon Canute. With the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War, April 1775, the settlers organized themselves into the Washington District loyal to the United Colonies and formed a committee safety to govern it, making the end of the so-called Watauga Republic. In spring of 1776,
Tennessee,
go ahead.
Tennessee volunteers.
Very possible.
Where they at now will be known as Tennessee.
That's true. In spring of 1776, the Washington District Committee of Safety drafted a petition asking the colony of Virginia to annex the district. After Virginia refused, the committee drafted a similar petition dated July 5, 1776, asking North Carolina Assembly to annex the district. In November of the year, North Carolina granted the petition and formally annexed the area. The Washington District was finally admitted to North Carolina as Washington County in November 1777. The Cherokee, who were aligned with the British, launched an all-out invasion against the settlements in July 1776, but were soundly defeated. In 1777, the Cherokee signed the Treaty of Long Island, ceding control of Watauga and Nolichucky valleys to the American colonies.
So the Watauga became the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
The first man.
Because they drafted a petition asking the colony of Virginia to annex the district. Virginia refused, so then they asked North Carolina to annex the district. Golden Moon says, can we all get some type of homework to do on a certain state or maybe even on the topic, then come back and do a report on our findings so we all on the chat and panel are engaged? No one's stopping you from doing it. That's the reason why we put the information in the chat for you to do exactly that. What that does is that helps everybody. I have no problem with that golden moment. Now, if you're asking us to give you a homework assignment, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Just keep studying Texas like you're doing Golden Bad Moon Rising, because this was the final battle. This was the Avengers Endgame in Texas. So if you know what's going on in Texas, Oak Cliff Chip had put it in the chat about Watauga. Okay, Watauga, the white settlement, all this is in Texas. All these people that came here, your Shawnee, your Cherokee, your Choctaw, your Catawba Sioux, everybody Seminoles, everybody merged here in Texas. So if you study Texas, everything else will start making sense, including those Tennessee volunteers we've been talking about for a long time now. I yield the mic.
Thank you, Doodle Vision, aka James Flame, aka Choctaw Jimmy. So it reads that, what was that? Yeah, so North Carolina was the one that annexed the district. And by them annexing the district, they ended up becoming part of North Carolina. It says the Cherokee, who were aligned with the British, launched an all-out invasion against the settlements in July 1776, but were soundly defeated. Now, I'm thinking that those Cherokee did that because the British told them to do it. Because it didn't happen until after the fact. And if you want to have a look at the actual the Watauga petition, you can actually get a copy of it. There's an original text according to Wikisource. It's under the structure. So if you scroll down under wikipedia.org/wiki/Watauga Association and go down the structure, over to the right where it says Wikisource, it has the original text related to this article. Watauga petition. So, it's getting deep, bro. It's getting really deep.
Yes, it is.
So, let me see. Trying to see if we need to read any more about the Watauga Association. Go ahead, Bones.
Do it mention any names in the Watauga Association?
That's what I'm looking at now. So, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the structure because this is important. Try not to veer too far over, but you gotta do it. If we're gonna do it all the way. It says, since no copy of the Articles of the Watauga Association has ever been found, most of what is known about it comes from the sources, primarily the 1776 petition of the inhabitants of the Washington District, commonly called the Watauga Petition, in which the Wataugans requested annexation by North Carolina. According to the petition, the articles were fashioned after the laws of Virginia and were enacted by unanimous consent of the settlers. The primary reason given for establishment of the Watauga Association was to prevent the Watauga and the Nolichucky regions from becoming a haven for debtors and felons, and for conducting public business, such as the recording of deeds and wills. Other sources, such as the later writings of Washington District Committee of Safety Clerk Pro Temp William Tatham, 1752-1819, and documents collected by historian J.G.M. Ramsey in the mid-19th century revealed that the articles established a 5-member court, the members of which were elected, and the Wataugans erected a courthouse and jail at Sycamore Shoals. Before I read any further, why would they need to establish a region and keep it from
Courthouse.
becoming a house for debtors and felons? Is that who these individuals were that
All
were
the
coming over here
squatting going.
squatting? Because you would only put such language in a annexation request if that was the common practice of a territory that did not or was not allowed to govern itself. So are they saying that felons and debtors were being sent over here? I don't know. Do some research and find out. But that's what it seems like to me. And one of the first things they erect are courthouses and jails.
Mm-hmm. Not food storage, not pantry, courthouse jail.
You're breaking up, Bones. But to answer your question, as far as names, it says historians disagree over the first 5 magistrates of the court, although most agree that it included John Carter, James Robertson, Charles Robertson, and Zachariah Isbell. The 5th member was probably Jacob Brown. Later court members included Andrew Greer, John Radai, and John Seaver. James Smith was probably the court's first clerk, replaced by Seaver in 1775, but Seaver was elected to the court. Felix Walker took over as clerk, with the Tatham serving in his absence. So let's look at who James Robertson was. James Robertson, June 28th, 1742, transition September 1st, 1814, was an American explorer, soldier, and Indian agent, and one of the founding fathers of what became the state of Tennessee. An early companion of explorer Daniel Boone, Robertson helped establish the Watauga Association in the early 1770s, and to defend the Fort Watauga from an attack by Cherokee in 1776. In 1779, he co-founded what is now Nashville and was instrumental in the settlement of Middle Tennessee. He served as a brigadier general in the Southwest Territory Militia in the early 1790s and as an Indian commissioner later in life. Robinson was born in 1742 in Brunswick County, Virginia, of Scots, Irish, and English descent. Around 1750, his father relocated the family to Wake County, North Carolina. Robinson worked with his siblings on their family farm and had limited formal education, but he learned to track and hunt animals and know his way in the woods and waterways. So were they sharecroppers? So how else would he learn to track and hunt unless he was dealing with Indians? I'm just saying. Robertson returned to North Carolina and married Charlotte Reeves in 1767. They started farming. In 1769, Robertson accompanied explorer Daniel Boone on his 3rd expedition to lands beyond the Allegheny Mountains. The party discovered the Old Friends, lands previously cultivated by generations of Native Americans along the Watauga River Valley, where Elizabethton, Tennessee later developed. Robertson stopped here to plant corn while Boone continued on to Kentucky. So obviously he had some relations with Indians, because how else would he know to plant corn? They didn't have corn in Europe at this time. After returning to North Carolina, Robertson became involved with the Regulator movement. They recruited a group of settlers to return to the Watauga River Valley, which they believed to be in Virginia, at the time including present-day West Virginia. In 1772, Robertson and the pioneers who settled in northeast Tennessee along the Watauga, Holston, and Nolichucket rivers met at Sycamore Shoals to establish an independent regional government known as the Watauga Association. However, in 1772, surveyors placed the land officially within the domain of the Cherokee tribe, who had long occupied this area. They required the settlers to negotiate a lease to cultivate and settle on their land. As the signed lease was being celebrated, a Cherokee warrior was murdered by a white man. Robertson's skillful diplomacy made peace with the irate Cherokee, who threatened to expel the settlers by force if necessary. In 1775, a treaty meeting was held between the Cherokee and a delegation of the Transylvania Company, headed by Richard Henderson. Under the Treaty of Sycamore Shoals, or Treaty of Watauga, the Transylvania Company purchased a vast amount of land from the Cherokee, including most of present-day Kentucky and part of Tennessee. Wait a minute. So not only are the Cherokee doing business with the United States, well, with the colonies, but they also are conducting business with the Transylvania Company. Who is the Transylvania Company?
Yeah, indeed.
Let me put this in the chat. Transylvania. He says Transylvania Company land equals Ohio Valley. So, let's see. Transylvania Colony, also referred to as Transylvania Purchase, was a short-lived extra-legal colony founded during 1775 by land speculator Richard Henderson, who controlled the North Carolina-based Transylvania Company. Henderson and his investors had reached an arrangement to purchase a vast tract of Cherokee land west of the southern and central Appalachian Mountains. Although the acceptance of Treaty of Sycamore Shoals with mostly the Cherokee chieftains then controlled these lands. To further complicate matters, this early American frontier land was also claimed at the same time by both the province of Virginia, particularly following Lord Dunmore's War, and the North Carolina colony. Wait a minute, stop. Wait. Did the Cherokee sell this land to 3 different people? Am I looking at this right?
Basically. Yeah, remember when I said earlier that we got to remember that the states expanded so far west that everything west was belonging to either Carolina, Virginia, as you go up. Remember, the states at this time stopped at the Appalachian Mountains.
Right, because Britain had basically forbade them to go west of Appalachians. So the Cherokee are selling land to so these individuals are doing backdoor deals. So the Cherokee are selling the same land to these people, knowing that they're not supposed to be buying. That's what it looks like to me. Am I missing something?
Yeah, because remember, the Cherokee wasn't even by their own rules. They wasn't supposed to be selling land.
Grand Rising, Jay Susquehanna. So it says, I'm going to read this again. It says, to further complicate matters, this early American frontier land also claimed at the same time by both the province of Virginia, particularly following Lord Dunmore's War, and the North Carolina colony. So the North Carolina colony, province of Virginia, and the Transylvania Company were paying the Cherokee Indians for the same land. The Transylvania Company was primarily located as what is now the central eastern parts of Kentucky. The American pioneer and frontier explorer Daniel Boone was hired by Henderson to establish the wilderness road going through the Cumberland Gap and into southeastern Kentucky. Transylvania officially ceased to exist as a government entity in 1776 when the Virginia Assembly invalidated the Transylvania Purchase. So here's a question. Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. Looks like Antonio Batiste found some information. So everybody click on that link because it looks like it's got some good information in it. So, but here's my question. Thanks, Antonio. Appreciate you. Here's the question. It appeared that at first glance, that the Europeans were extremely harsh in forcing land from the Cherokees. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't have done this anyway, but it appears to me that with all this backdoor double dealing and selling the same land to multiple purchasers, it caused the colonies to be very upset with Cherokee and basically punish them for their misdeeds. I could be wrong, but based off of these accounts, Cherokee was selling the same land to three different people. Am I missing something? Okay, maybe not.
No, you're spot on, and you'll see these three different groups stemmed from, again, going back to that 7 year war. I know we may not have an opportunity to get back on it today, but those three different groups. If y'all could do me a favor, when you see Scott Irish, replace it with one word: Acadians. Acadians were already here going back and forth. Because again, if you're looking at it on a map, your Scotland and Ireland, that's not a large land mass. So how all these Scott Irish coming over here and they're still kicking it in the area that became known as Great Britain a little bit later? These are your Vikings, your Dutch. That's why you have Transylvania and you have Pennsylvania, and we all know that William Penn was a Quaker. Again, those same Dutch, wood shoe wearing Dutch, keep following the breadcrumbs, and you'll see the battle was between those Dutch or your Germanic speaking languages and your Romantic languages or your Latin or your Ladino speaking people. Look at that French and Indian War. We have to go back and revisit that. I'm gonna come back a little bit later, but I'm gonna yield the mic.
Sounds like the Cherokee put themselves in a pretty tight predicament. Maybe they were influenced by the Europeans and their double dealers and decided to do some of their own. And it caught up with them. Right now, we don't know.
We get kicked off the air.
Who? Now I'm sitting here talking, and my mic is muted. No, but like I was saying, it seems to me that the Cherokee got caught up in double dealings or triple dealings. I think they were influenced by the Europeans, and they ended up hemming them up in the long run. Free says that's the same thing that happened during the Pennamite Yankee War, which occurred during the same time as the Revolutionary and Chickamauga, aka the Cherokee War. King Charles II promised land to two parties. Wow.
Yep. But if you delve a little bit deeper into the Cherokee, you will notice that they are three distinctive groups of people, which is why it's hard to research when it comes to Cherokee. It's like, which group of Cherokee are you talking to? There are three different types of three different groups of these Cherokee tribes. They were not just, you think about them being in unison, that was not the case. So when you discover that there are three different groups and the groups and what they were doing, like I said, there was one group that were up in there that they called the Ohio Valley, your Iroquoian speaking languages where you get all, like I say, all your Sylvanias, your Transylvania, your Pennsylvania, and all the rest of that stuff. All that's dealing with the Acadians. So all this mixture in of this tri group is where you get these melunges. That's why they tell you that they are a hodgepodge or a mixture of all these different groups in the Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio Valley. But there are three distinctive groups of Cherokee that spoke three distinctive languages. I yield the mic.
Man, three distinctive groups in one tribe or confederation or nation, however you want to look at it. All right, where we at? All right, so everything comes back around. So this name is going to sound familiar to the Autonomous Assembly chat and panel. In 1776, allied with the Shawnee, led by Cornstalk, Cherokee attacked settlers in South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and North Carolina in the Second Cherokee War. Overhill Cherokee, Nancy Ward, Dragon Canoe's cousin, warned settlers of impending attacks. Provincial militias retaliated, destroying more than 50 Cherokee towns. North Carolina militia in 1776 and in 1780 invaded and destroyed the Overhill towns. In 1777, surviving Cherokee town leaders signed treaties in the new states. So after this, there were new states created. So y'all remember who Cornstalk was, right?
Yep, another one of them Joseph Grant buddies. Mm-mm. Think about it. When we started on Cherokee Wars, then we see that in the beginning where you had the Iroquois that was selling land that didn't even belong to them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things so-called rape could it be Indians coming back home and finding somebody on their land?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to put this link in the chat. This is Nancy Ward. She was a Cherokee. Wow.
Another one of them landmines.
All right, watch out for falling debris, y'all. It's about to get deeper. Name is pronounced Nanyehi, one who goes about, known in English as Nancy Ward, was a beloved woman and political leader of the Cherokee. She advocated for peaceful coexistence with the European Americans and late in life spoke out for Cherokee retention of tribal lands. She's also credited with the introduction of dairy products to the Cherokee economy. Uh, Nanyehi was born in the Cherokee capital of Chota, in what is today known as Monroe County, Tennessee. Her mother, the sister of Oothcaloga, was a member of the Wolf Clan. Here we go with them clans again, right? Though her mother is often referred to as Tamedo, but tame though. The name could be from a fictional story by E. Sterling King and has no other historical source. According to Nanyee's descendant John Walker Jack Highbrand, her father was Five Killer, a member of the Delaware tribe. In her teens, Nanyee married Sula, Cherokee Kingfisher, who, according to Emmett Starr, was a member of the Deer Clan. By age 17, Nanyee and Sula had two children, Catherine Katib Walker and Littlefellow. Hiskitihi Five Killer. Oh yeah, so Littlefellow is Hiskitihi Five Killer is also known as Littlefellow. Starr also writes that in the Battle of Taliwa against the Creeks, Nancy lay behind a log and chewed Sula's bullets so that the jagged edges would inflict more damage. When Sula was killed, Nancy picked up her husband's rifle and led the Cherokees to victory. After the battle, she was awarded the title of Higua, meaning beloved woman, deeming her the only female voting member of the Cherokee General Council. She was also named the leader of the Women's Council of Clan Representatives, which allowed her to become an ambassador and negotiator for her people. In late 1750s, Nanyee remarried to English trader Brian Ward, with whom she had a daughter, Elizabeth Betsy Ward, who would later marry General Joseph Martin. Bryant would eventually return to South Carolina to live with his first wife, a woman of European descent to whom he was still married when he married Nanyee. Are y'all listening to this?
Uh-huh.
I was on mute. My bad. I said yes.
Said it, landmines. Warned it. Landmines. Blowing up everywhere.
Sound like somebody was a jump off.
Yeah, what I heard.
And it's funny how Jay says he first read it at Philadelphia Public Library, downtown Philadelphia. They say they have one of the remaining copies. Yeah, so this Nancy Ward. Yeah, she looked like she was about causing problems. He said she was one of the only voting members in the Cherokee society. How is that possible? When they come from a matrilineal. Anyway.
Remember, this can be a completely different set of Cherokee as well.
Yeah, that's true. So, continuing on with Nancy Ward's story. It says in the beginning of the 1760s, the Cherokees had entered an alliance with the American colonists who were fighting the French and Indian War. In exchange for their assistance, the European Americans promised to protect them against the Creeks and Choctaws. This led to the building of a military station and frontier post in Cherokee land, and with them, settlers came into the nation. After an incident in West Virginia where frontiersmen killed a group of Cherokee who were returning from the conquering of Fort Tuscany, helping the British, the natives killed more than 200 settlers in order to get revenge. A two-year lasting conflict began in which the Cherokees captured Fort Loudon, defeating the British forces. As Gigua Nancy, the power to spare captives in 1776 following a Cherokee attack on Fort Watuco settlement on Watuco River, she used the power to spare a Mrs. William Lydia Russell Bean, whom she took into her house and nursed back to health from injuries suffered in the battle. Mrs. Bean taught Nanyehi a new loom weaving technique, revolutionizing the Cherokee garments, which at the time were a combination of hides, hand-woven vegetable fiber cloth, and cloth bought from traders. This weaving revolution also changed the roles of women in Cherokee society as they took on the weaving and left men to do the planting, which had traditionally been a woman's job. Mrs. Bean also rescued two of her dairy cows from the settlement and brought them to Nanyehi, who learned to raise the cattle and to eat dairy products, which could sustain the Cherokee when hunting was bad. On June 2nd, 1793, a delegation had gathered at Hanging Log's preparation to proceed to Philadelphia in compliance with the invitation from the president. The delegation was attacked without warning by a company of whites led by Captain John Beard, and Nancy's daughter Betsy was killed. Captain Beard was tried before a court-martial but was acquitted. Emmett Starr writes that Nancy was a successful cattle raiser, and is said to have been the first to introduce that industry among the Cherokees. The combination of loom weaving and dairy farming helped transform Cherokee society from a communal agricultural society into a society very similar to their European American neighbors, with family plots and the need for ever more labor. Thus, some Cherokee adopted the practice of chattel slavery. Nanyehi was among the first Cherokee to own African American slaves. How did I know they was gonna put that in there?
You knew it was coming.
After a truce, Carolina Rangers and Royal Scots joined the British light infantry, invading Cherokee territory, burning crops and towns. The Cherokee surrendered, giving up a large portion of their lands.
Can somebody tell me how was Indians buying slaves with what? Please.
That's a good question. And where did she get them from?
Because the narrative is they bought slaves on boats and people went to auctions to buy slaves. So what group of Indians was going around these settlers up in the north buying slaves and coming back?
Yeah, they auctions.
When the Indians couldn't even go back in Virginia. So how was they getting slaves? Somebody, anybody, please. The madness got to stop.
Scream or help you?
No, I mean, this is just an interesting question. It's like they keep throwing this African slaves in here. So my question is, where was these Indians buying slaves from? Where?
Because this is the first time we heard about slaves. So she had slaves, she had cows, but during all these raids, no slaves were taken, no slaves were stolen. Just she the only one that had black slaves, African American slaves at that. So where'd she get them from?
Yeah, what did she have contact with? You got to remember, they way over in what we know as Tennessee. So who was, come on, how did they get there? Matter of fact, where's the bill of sales of some Indians buying them? But if you bought somebody that way, how they tell you it went down, there would be your property, you would get a receipt, and there'll be proof. So where's even this? One recorded record.
I mean, if they got copies of everything else, they should have copies of bill of sales, right?
Or some tribal members going into Virginia, Carolina, New York, and buying a bunch of slaves. And I would think with all the fighting going on, that'd be the last thing on their mind when they already taken other Indians as slaves. So why would you go buy somebody?
And when would you have time to buy slaves when you got tribes at the same time taking your people and making them slaves? So now you're going to introduce another group of people as slaves to your family, people that you don't know.
But you paying for them. You're paying for them. Wouldn't you be trying to buy some ammunition or something?
I don't know.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
James. Jay Sasquana says you got to feed slaves. Yeah, you got to feed them. You got to give them a place to stay in the whole line. James Flames, come on in,
Yes,
brother.
sir.
What you got for
I'm
us?
I'm just here basking in all the glory.
Yeah, I mean, really, where did they pull the resources? They telling you this woman had slaves, so that means she will have food, water, materials. Where did this stuff come from?
I don't know. I have no idea. What happened to the music? Still alive. Interesting to say the very least.
Yep, the plot thickens. That's what I said. When you start seeing all this and dealing with all these so-called uh, slaves and this person here, and again, how they keep interchanging slave and African. But starting out, you were seeing they were kidnapping Indians and enslaving them. So when did this transition change, and when did all of this take place, and when did all this, and all of a sudden we are West African? Now this is gonna go back a little bit, but then it's gonna bring us forward. I mentioned this in the chat, and we had talked about it before. That the 7 Years War, which was really your World War One, because it covered 5 continents. Now this is gonna mess some people up, and I know it. So let me put it out here. The views and opinions expressed are those of James Flames, aka Doodoo Vision, aka Choctaw Jimmy, and not those of A2. So I'm gonna put that out there. So don't come after A2, come after me, and we can have this discussion. That when people are talking about they are Akans, go find out who the Akans are. And especially if you're an Akan and you were studying voodoo, you are practicing voodoo. If you're a voodoo priest or voodoo priestess. Because this started in IT, Haiti. Go back and look at and study the French Indian War, 7 Years War. And then you will find out that when you so-called do your DNA research, you keep finding that you're from these same places in West Africa. Those they keep mentioning the same areas, these same countries, these same parts of West Africa. Perhaps you'll discover that it was Indians going over there and fighting during the 7 Years War, and these were French areas, French settlements. This is how voodoo came into West Africa. Those that are claiming to be Akans, that is how you got into West Africa. because willingly, there were Indians that willingly went over to West Africa to fight and claim the land. Again, the war was between the Germanic speaking people, which are your Vikings, your Goths, and your Latin, Romantic, Ladino speaking peoples. Now you will look at it differently. Now come back over here. You're still dealing with the Scot Irish, which are your Dutch, wooden shoe people, same folk, your German folk, which is why you have all these German towns between them. Again, also the Acadians, same folk. So you can interchange Dutch, Vikings, Germans, whatever you want to call them. They are the same people. Acadians versus your French, your Southern French, which where you get your Creoles from, who sided with the Indians. Because again, South Carolina, well, over this way, anything that is south of Virginia, that area there, until you get into the southern part of what is now known as South Carolina and Georgia, that was called Francois. That's where, like I said again, you get your Gullah Geechee, you get all of these folks. And as they said earlier, the Westo, they claim them to be Cherokee, but when you do more research, you're like, no, they're not. They're actually Northern Creek. They were actually Northern Yamasee, which sold their people out. So you start seeing this Cherokee is being used interchangeably with all of these different groups of people. All of these different groups of people, you'll find out. You say, okay, this is Cherokee, this is Cherokee, that this doesn't make sense. How does she do this? How does she do that? Because again, how are you getting slaves from the port of New York across the Appalachian Mountains? Tell me how you're doing that. How are you going back and forth like that? You're not. They're moving people around in the land. You have, and everybody has these Scot-Irish ties. Keep reading. When you keep reading the research, everyone has these Scot-Irish ties. They were already here. Your Acadians. The rose by any other name is still a rose. And you're gonna find out who's doing what and why. Because why would the French, why would the French wars, why would these wars, 7-year wars, go all over the world, even into the Pacific? That was your original World War One, and it spilled over into what we know as World War One today and World War Two. These are the same people still fighting. I yield the mic.
And I just put the link in where it says 7-year wars. And if you click on the link and you scroll down, it says location. It talks about the location where these wars took place. It says Europe, North America, South America, Africa, Asia. Don't believe me? Look at the link.
France was everywhere.
I was just about to ask you, wasn't that one of the places in Asia was one of the places the Indians volunteered to go to fight?
For the Opium Wars, yeah. You had Indians in the Opium Wars.
Yep. And even, like I said, even dealing with that 7-year war, you're going to find out those same French-speaking countries in West Africa practice voodoo. And those are the same ones that keep popping up on people's DNA stuff, DNA tests. Which is why I said from the beginning, it was not that we're from there, it's that they were from here. Everybody didn't come back when they went over there. Who do you think was in charge of all of the missions and the forts that were over there in West Africa? Why are they speaking Bai over there? Bai is a Cherokee language. Why are West Indians speaking Bai? This is how it got over there. Let's stop playing. Again, voodoo. Study the elements of voodoo. All of the things that they use, the herbs to the birds and everything else, you'll find in the Americas. They're not over there in West Africa. Voodoo started over here in IT. And what was IT? Well, these not French people. Well, these not Creole. And the battle was between the Creole and the Acadians, which is why you had the Haitian rebellion, because they were both French, but they were two different groups of French. You had the Gothic French and you had the Southern French. Two different groups of people. I yield the mic.
Look at it now. Ain't that island split between two different nations?
Talking about Dominican,
France and Spain.
yeah,
'Cause
Dominican Republic is the Spanish side, and
didn't we read in the beginning that Portugal and Spain called themselves splitting the world into two? And the Portuguese is the French and the Dutch. So remembering that bit of information, then looking at the world, you can see the two sides that was fighting. The so-called Spanish side and the French side, all across the planet.
and it's already been proven, and it's already been spoken about, and it's already been mentioned how the Indians were traveling back and forth to Europe to visit the kings and stuff. So that's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. So if they were going there to visit the kings, why wouldn't they go there to fight? Especially when they're being called emperors and kings. So if they weren't being called emperors and kings for here, they were being called emperors and kings for places that they would actually have territory and conquest over in other lands. Such as a thought.
Because an empire implies that you are a ruler of many lands, not one land. Because kingdoms make up an empire.
Then we just read about one Indian leader that was living an emperor, and he went to go visit. He was supposed to go visit the King George II, but he couldn't because his wife was sick. We just read about that, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So who was
You know
he?
about and them going over there several times.
What was he an emperor over? They said he was an emperor over all Cherokee. So obviously, emperor over Cherokee in the Americas meant that were there Cherokee in other lands other than America? Because
It would have to be.
right, because you wouldn't be called an emperor of emperor of Cherokee in America because you would just be called a chief. But if you're emperor of all Cherokee, wouldn't that mean there were Cherokee in other places besides America? I'm just asking. I could be wrong.
Land masses, yeah. Again, if you remove the Indian, what military do the Americans have at this time?
And remember, a lot of our young Indians were addicted to alcohol. I don't know about y'all, but I got relatives that when they drink alcohol, they're ready to do what? Fight. I'm gonna leave that right there. Let y'all sit on it.
And I'll fast forward a little bit, which gets you back to Alexander Hamilton and why he wanted the Catawba Saponi to be in charge of his navy. Because he knew, and again, he was making allegiances to the Southern French against the Northern French, which are your Vikings, your Acadians, aka your wooden shoe wearing Dutch. And the wooden shoe wearing Dutch, aka the French, got word of it, gave it back to Thomas Jefferson. Then all of a sudden, we got the Louisiana Purchase. When you start seeing who was who and who was doing what, and it's still the battle to this very day. The battle has not changed. It is between the Indians and those cotton picking Vikings that's been here for thousands of years. I yield the mic.
And Free touched on something in the chat. Makes sense. As the Indians are all fighting world wars, you got the Acadians here seizing the Indians' homeland, becoming forever more entrenched. It makes sense how you can start bringing in a boatload of people to start squatting when you know the majority of the fighters are off on continents fighting. When you study it, it was war after war after war after war, preoccupied. Flying off home while they season. Also with the help of particular sets of Indians. Cut deals on each other.
So, do some research on
And
7 year.
we're gonna need a crane to get up.
Yeah, I mean, it's right here. Location for the 7 Year War. 7 Year Indian War. Europe, North America, South America, Africa, and Asia. It says that the 7 Years War was a global conflict fought between 1756 and 1763. It involved every European great power of the time and spanned 5 continents, affecting Europe, the Americas, West Africa, South Asia, and the Philippines. It said the conflict split Europe into 2 coalitions. One was led by a kingdom of Great Britain and included the Kingdom of Prussia, the Kingdom of Portugal, the Electorate of Brunswick-Luneburg, and the other smaller German states, while the other was led by the Kingdom of France and included the Austrian-led Holy Roman Empire, the Russian Empire until 1762, the Kingdom of Spain, and the Swedish Empire. Meanwhile, in India, some regional polites within the increasingly fragmented Mughal Empire, with the support of the French, tried to crush a Britain attempt to conquer Bengal. It says although Anglo-French skirmishes over the American colonies had begun with what became the French-Indian War in 1754, the large-scale conflict that drew in most of the European powers was centered on Austria's desire to recover Silesia from the Prussians. Seeing an opportunity to curtail Britain's and Prussia's ever-growing might, France and Austria put aside their ancient rivalry to form a grand coalition of their own, bringing most of other European powers to their side. Faced with the sudden turn of events, Britain allied itself with Prussia in a series of political maneuvers known as the Diplomatic Revolution. However, French efforts ended in a failure when the Anglo-Prussian coalition prevailed, and Britain's rise as among the world's prominent powers destroyed France's supremacy in Europe, thus altering the European balance of power. Now, at this time, which tribes did the French have a lot of influence over, who were trying their darndest to be like the French? I'll wait.
That would be the Iroquois.
Mm.
Algonquian. Your northern
Basically, all
Sioux.
of the northern Indians, all you northern Indian tribes, basically.
This thing on?
It's
Is the chat still working?
still working. Golden Moon, aka KD said, so was the real North against, so was this the real North against the South? No, it was more like the French against the Dutch. I mean, the French against the Germans. And this would explain why during this time, the Indians were choosing sides and they were having bitter debates, and it split a lot of tribes too. So think about it. The tribes were split into because, like I said here, Europe was basically broke into two coalitions. And why were they recruiting so heavy the tribes? Because not only did they need them to fight in the Americas, they needed them to fight in Europe, Africa, and Asia. But what they done,
All years of being in the French club when I was in high school is finally paying off. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
now you go. I mean, this it just basically lets us know how those tribes ended up over in West Africa.
Yep, not as slaves, but going over there as the military.
as the voluntary.
Exactly.
You give these young warriors, Indians, alcohol and enough trinkets, they'll go fight anyway. Because that was one of the problems that the Algonquin tribes were having with these young Indians because they were influenced by the Europeans, especially the French, and they wanted to be like them. So they heard about battles in in other places, so they wanted to have battles in other places to show their dominance. You can't you you can't tell me that if you're known for being a great warrior and you're dominating, because it was already mentioned that the Iroquois were great warriors in the northern parts of Canada, in the northern part of America, and you hearing about these Europeans going fighting all over the world, you're not gonna want to partake in that to show your dominance, your tribe. You can't tell me that's not gonna happen.
Oh, I see Antonio Banderas has a question. That is correct. Your Catholic French with a Creole, which you'll find in predominantly Louisiana, New Orleans area, versus your Protestants. Your Protestant were your Germans because you get everything from your Lutheran church, again, Germans. All these are Germans, aka your Dutch, aka your Vikings. Your Protestant churches. Protestant means to protest. What were they protesting? What were they protesting? See, we have to when we start breaking these words down, you start to understand what they mean. What were they protesting? And why were they coming over here to escape persecution? Prosecutor, you were criminals. What were you doing over there? Why do you think that, again, I said this before, and I'm going to drop a little nugget. Why do you think that the buckle of the Baptist Bible Belt is in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Lynchburg, Tennessee? Everything happens for a reason. This was the push of these Acadians, and if they were controlling the central landmass, they could control the rest. Again, what we talk about as the King's English, we all know that that's a Germanic language, Viking language, Dutch language. Find out who these people are. Don't get caught up in the mysticism, be like, oh yeah, what's up? But when you specifically know who these people are, that is why there's a difference between a Creole and a Cajun. And if you call a Creole a Cajun, you may get cut. You may find you a tooth here and an eye there somewhere in the swamp. You go ahead and try it if you want to. I yield the mic.
Exactly, friend. She said trinkets could be considered anything they offered our ancestors, considering we had everything we needed on this land and with our own tribe. Say. Antonio said that the religious war is still active. Just some extra players with Wicca, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. I think this is a good place to stop for now. James, is there anything that you want to add before we give it a rest? I know there's a lot of information that we hit people with today, that you hit people with today. So is there anything you want to say before we end it?
Just wanted to say, the more you keep researching those German, and I believe copper color. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I'm looking in the chat right. Yep, Copper Color Queen mentioned about those Germans running Brenham, Texas. They also New Brunswick, places in San Antonio, which is why they have Versbach, which is over there by Fort Sam Houston and San Antonio. All these places you'll find this German influence. And all going out into South America, down there in Argentina, the Brother Bones had mentioned that before. When you start studying and stop looking at just Germany as in Deutschland, that's why it's called Deutschland, and the monies that they were using was called the Deutsche Mark, Dutch Mark. These are the same folk that you will find all throughout the Americas. And we have been warned with them for thousands of years. The names may change, but they're all still the same people. I want to say I appreciate you all allowing me to be on the panel. I appreciate everybody in the chat, and keep digging because you're gonna keep finding the truth. That's why I said Texas was the final frontier. That Texas is the end game. So which side are you on? Are you on the side of Thanos or are you on the side of the Avengers? I yield this cotton picking mic.
The final countdown.
I can't. Born Free, Born Free asked a question on your guy saying that so-called black people have been here for thousands of years. The Vikings are your Acadians that have been here for a couple of thousand years. Yes. And David Corey, yes, he just found it. Grand Rising, Jack. So outside of the musical rendition of the final countdown, Salah, is there anything that you want to add before we close out?
Nope. I'll post links in our email in the chat, and everybody have a great, great day.
The only thing I want to say is, as always, I want to thank everybody on the panel. James Flame, aka Doodle Vision, aka Choctaw Jimmy. Bones McCoy. No sellout. I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming up, for supporting, not only supporting, but offering insight, intellect, and keeping the chat on subject, making sure that everyone's engaged, doing the research, keeping us held accountable. We appreciate that. Just want to let everyone know that Atancha's Assembly's goal is to help those individuals do their genealogy. So if they are, in fact, Indian, they have Indian in their family, our goal is to help you find your tribe, tie into your tribe, and help your tribe and yourself, along with your relatives, become self-sufficient. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're not here to tell you who you should be. If you so happen to find Africans in your tribe, then phenomenal, fantastic. If you find Europeans in your tribe, phenomenal. At least you know who your ancestors are, who they were, and that may make some sense to you. So, any help that you need, the information is in the chat. You can be reached at atachetassembly@gmail.com, or you can go to atachetassembly.com, the website, and get access to free 50 resources dealing with genealogy and also the vital statistics in all 50 states. As always, we want to thank you. With that being said, Bones, you can go ahead and take us out.
It's always great when you kick it with relatives in the rising. So to the next rising, peace.
Peace, y'all.